Why giving up on people doesn't make you a bad person. There's a belief ingrained in many of us that we must always hold on, that loyalty is the ultimate virtue, that walking away from someone, whether a friend, a partner, or even family, is a betrayal of the highest kind. We are taught to endure, to forgive endlessly, to always try harder. But what if that belief is flawed? What if holding on isn't always the right thing? What if giving up on someone doesn't make you cruel, but instead makes you wise? We don't like to admit it, but relationships of any kind are not just about love, history, or obligation. They are about energy. They are about the silent exchanges that take place beneath words, the way someone makes you feel, the weight they bring into your life. Some people energize us, uplift us, bring out the best in us. Others drain us, diminish us, leave us feeling exhausted and unseen. And yet, we convince ourselves that we must stay, that it is our duty to fix, to heal, to hold space for those who may never do the same for us. But why? Why do we believe that love means sacrifice, that kindness means self-destruction? Maybe it's because we fear what it means to let go. We fear being judged, being called selfish or cold. We fear regret, the possibility that maybe we gave up too soon, that maybe things could have changed if we had just tried a little harder. But here's the truth: you are not responsible for saving people who refuse to save themselves. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is to walk away. But this is where it gets complicated. Because how do you know when it's time to leave? How do you differentiate between a rough patch and a toxic cycle? Between someone who truly needs your support and someone who is simply taking advantage of your kindness? The answer is not always clear, but there's one question that reveals everything. Does this relationship bring more pain than peace? We don't ask ourselves this question enough. We justify, we rationalize, we tell ourselves that all relationships require effort, that no one is perfect. And while that's true, there's a difference between working through problems and constantly sacrificing your own well-being just to keep something alive. If a relationship, any relationship, consistently leaves you feeling worse, if it makes you doubt yourself, if it chips away at your self-worth, then what exactly are you holding on to? A memory? A version of the person that no longer exists? A story you told yourself about how things were supposed to be? The hardest truth to accept is that not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people come into your life as lessons, not lifelong companions. Some connections are meant to be temporary, no matter how much we wish they weren't. And the longer we hold on to something that is already broken, the more we suffer. We tell ourselves that leaving is failure, but what if staying in a situation that is slowly destroying you is the real failure?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The guilt trap. Why letting go feels wrong even when it's right. Guilt is a powerful force. It keeps us tethered to people long after our hearts have told us to walk away. It whispers that leaving makes us selfish, that letting go means we failed, that if we truly cared, we would stay no matter how much it hurts. But where does this guilt come from? Why do we feel so responsible for the happiness of others, even at the cost of our own? From a young age, we are taught that good people don't abandon others. We hear stories about loyalty, about perseverance, about unconditional love. We are told that relationships, especially deep ones, are meant to withstand hardship, that real love means never giving up. And while resilience and commitment are valuable, they become dangerous when they turn into self-sacrifice. Somewhere along the way, we blur the line between being compassionate and being a martyr. We convince ourselves that enduring pain is proof of our goodness, that if we just hold on a little longer, things will change. But does suffering truly make us better people? Or does it just make us exhausted? The truth is, guilt often has nothing to do with morality, it has to do with conditioning. We feel guilty, not necessarily because we are doing something wrong, but because we are breaking a deeply ingrained belief. We mistake discomfort for wrongdoing. But here's something to consider. If walking away from someone makes you feel guilty, but staying makes you feel drained, miserable, or trapped, which feeling is telling the truth? Guilt is temporary. The damage caused by staying in the wrong relationships is not. And yet we hesitate. We think about the history, the memories, the good moments that existed before things went wrong. We tell ourselves that if things were good once, they can be good again. We cling to nostalgia, to potential, to the idea that maybe this person will change if we just love them enough. But how often does that actually happen? How many times have you told yourself just one more chance, only to find yourself in the same painful cycle, over and over again? Another reason we struggle to let go is that we don't want to be seen as the villain. We don't want to be the one who walked away, who gave up, who didn't try hard enough. We fear what others will say, how the story will be told from their perspective. But here's the thing, people will always have opinions. They will judge, misunderstand, project their own beliefs onto your decisions. But they are not the ones living your life. They are not the ones carrying the weight of this relationship. And at the end of the day, the only person who truly has to live with your choices is you. So why do we give so much power to guilt? Why do we let it dictate our decisions, even when we know, deep down, that leaving is the right thing to do? Maybe because the alternative, facing the unknown, is terrifying. Maybe because we would rather stay in a familiar pain than risk the uncertainty of freedom. Or maybe because we have spent so much time trying to fix something that admitting it cannot be fixed feels like failure. But what if it's not a failure? What if letting go is actually an act of courage? What if choosing yourself, choosing peace, choosing growth is not selfish, but necessary? What if the real mistake is not leaving, but staying in situations that no longer serve you? Think about it. If you were watching someone you love suffer in a relationship that was draining them, would you tell them to stay? Would you tell them that their pain was worth it, that their loyalty mattered more than their happiness? Or would you tell them that they deserve better? And if you would say that to someone else, why is it so hard to say it to yourself? So here's the question. If you stripped away the guilt, the fear, the pressure to be the good person, what would you choose? Would you stay? Or would you finally give yourself permission to let go? The cost of holding on, how staying can break you more than leaving ever will. There's a hidden cost to holding on, one we rarely acknowledge until it's too late. We spend so much time worrying about what we might lose if we walk away that we forget to consider what we are losing by staying. Our time, our energy, our peace, our sense of self. We justify the pain, telling ourselves that it's temporary, that things will get better, that this person will change. But what if they don't? What if, in trying to hold someone else together, you are slowly falling apart? We don't often think about relationships in terms of economics, but maybe we should. Every relationship is an investment. We pour in love, time, effort, patience, and in return, we hope for something meaningful: connection, trust, growth, fulfillment. But what happens when the return is nothing but exhaustion? Would you keep pouring money into a business that only ever left you in debt? Would you continue planting seeds in soil that never allows anything to grow? And if not, then why do we treat our emotional lives any differently? The hardest relationships to leave are the ones that are not entirely bad. Maybe there are still good moments, laughter, shared memories that remind you of why you stayed in the first place. Maybe the person isn't cruel, just flawed. Maybe they are trying, but never enough. And so you convince yourself that, because it's not all bad, you should endure the parts that are. But does that logic really hold up? If someone handed you a glass of water and told you that only a few drops were poisoned, would you still drink it? If a house had strong walls but a crumbling foundation, would you still live in it? The truth is, we often stay because we are afraid of what leaving will mean. Afraid of loneliness, of regret, of the possibility that maybe we were wrong. But fear is never a good enough reason to stay in something that is harming you. Fear keeps you stuck, convinces you that freedom is dangerous when in reality, it is the only thing that will save you. And here's something we don't talk about enough. Staying in the wrong relationships doesn't just hurt you, it changes you. Slowly, without realizing it, you become someone else. You start to shrink, to silence your needs, to accept less than you deserve. You make excuses for behavior that once would have been unacceptable. You convince yourself that this is just how love is, how friendships are, how family works. But what if that's a lie? What if love is not supposed to feel like this? We assume that leaving will be the thing that breaks us, but staying in the wrong place for too long does far more damage. It erodes your sense of self, dulls your spirit, turns you into a version of yourself that you don't even recognize. And one day you wake up and realize that in trying to hold on to someone else, you lost yourself. And that is the greatest loss of all. So ask yourself, if nothing changed, if this person stayed exactly as they are, if the situation remained the same, would you still want to be here 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, then why are you still here now? What are you waiting for? A sign? A breaking point? A moment when the pain finally outweighs the fear? And if you already know, deep down, that leaving is the right thing to do, then why are you still convincing yourself that staying is some kind of virtue? Maybe the real question is this: what if leaving isn't the thing that destroys you? What if staying is? Walking away to find yourself, why letting go is the beginning, not the end. Leaving is never just about the act of walking away. It is about what happens after. It is about the silence that follows, the space that was once filled by someone else. It is about the nights when doubt creeps in, when nostalgia plays tricks on your mind, making you remember only the good moments, conveniently erasing the pain that forced you to leave in the first place. It is about the slow, uncomfortable process of relearning who you are outside of that relationship, outside of the expectations, outside of the version of yourself that stayed for too long. We often mistake endings for failures. We think that if we had to walk away, it means we didn't try hard enough, didn't love deeply enough, didn't have what it takes to make things work. But what if endings are not failures at all? What if they are simply the natural conclusion to something that has served its purpose? We do not mourn the end of a book when we reach its final page. We do not call it a failure when a season changes. So why do we treat the ending of relationships as if they were never meant to end? Some people are meant to be chapters, not the whole story. Some connections are meant to teach us, not to last forever. So ask yourself, are you holding on because you truly believe in this connection, or are you holding on because you're afraid of what happens if you let go? Are you staying because there is real love, mutual respect, and growth, or because you've invested so much time that leaving feels like losing? And if you knew, with absolute certainty, that walking away would bring you peace, would you still hesitate? But the hardest part about leaving is not the act itself, it is what comes after. The rebuilding, the rediscovery. The moment you look in the mirror and realize you have no idea who you are without this relationship defining you. We spend so much time adjusting to others, making space for them in our lives, that when they are gone, it can feel like we are left with nothing. But that emptiness is not a void, it is a possibility. It is a space to become something new, to fill your life with things that do not drain you, to create a version of yourself that does not exist in someone else's shadow. And yet we resist. We want closure, answers, validation. We want to know that we made the right choice, that the other person understands why we left, that they miss us, that they regret losing us. But closure is a myth. It is something we chase, thinking that if we can just have one final conversation, one last explanation, it will somehow make the pain easier. But real closure does not come from someone else, it comes from you. It comes from accepting that you may never get the apology you deserve, that the other person may never see things the way you do, that you may never fully understand why things unfolded the way they did. And it comes from realizing that none of that changes the fact that walking away was still the right choice. Healing is not about forgetting. It is not about waking up one day and suddenly feeling nothing. It is about learning how to carry the memories without letting them weigh you down. It is about forgiving yourself for staying too long, for not seeing the truth sooner, for breaking your own heart in the process of trying to save someone else. It is about realizing that just because you loved someone does not mean they were meant to stay in your life. And maybe that is the real lesson in all of this, that letting go is not a betrayal of love, but sometimes the deepest expression of it. Love is not about possession. It is not about holding on at all costs. Sometimes love is knowing when to walk away. Sometimes love is choosing yourself, even when it feels like the hardest thing in the world. So ask yourself, what if leaving is not the end of something, but the beginning of something greater? What if, in letting go of them, you are finally making space to find yourself? And what if, years from now, you look back on this moment and realize that walking away was not the hardest thing you ever did, but the most powerful?